With her radical sensitivity, deep connection to nature, and idiosyncratic songwriting that tackles the primal escapism of romance, the struggle and joys of womanhood, heartbreak, and supernatural folklore, Kate Bush mimed her way into the hearts of the public in 1978 with the song Wuthering Heights, based on the Emily Bronte novel of the same name, becoming the first woman to achieve a #1 self-penned single in the UK. To this day, Kate Bush remains one of the most mystifying and elusive figures in music history. Her music is a uniquely literate, flamboyantly theatrical and avant-garde high-camp blend of art pop, folk rock, and prog rock. Nearly every musician who came after her, regardless of genre, has cited her as an inspiration and an influence. And that is no surprise. Kate Bush transcends genre. She transcends cultural boundaries. And regardless of what level of a music listener a person falls into, she is beloved by nearly everybody. Kate Bush was born in East Wickham, Kent, England. Her siblings and her parents were voracious music listeners, and that clearly had a major effect on her. My mother, Hannah, was of Irish descent and loved music and dancing, so I think she was a big influence. My father, Robert, was a doctor, but also a very good pianist, so there was always music in the house when I was growing up. We had an organ in the barn behind the house, and I used to go and play on that from an early age. I wasn't yet in my teens when I started to write songs. I think living where we did was a big help because there were not too many distractions. By the age of 15, Bush had written over 100 songs and also played in her brother's local pub band, which prompted a family friend in the music business, Ricky Hopper, to connect her with David Gilmour from Pink Floyd, who helped finance some of her initial demos, which included The Man with a Child in His Eyes off of her debut album. She eventually signed to EMI with an advance of £3,000 and recorded her first album, The Kickin' Side. The album was produced by Andrew Powell and included symphonic anthems with her signature swooping vocal acrobatics on songs like Wuthering Heights, intricate show-stopping prog numbers with several references to Western mythos like James and the Cold Gun, and choral tongue-in-cheek anti-love songs like Oh, to Be in Love.
You can sort of understand the experimentation of her music through thinking about what she does with her voice, and she uses it as a kind of fabric to sort of pull and push and almost tear apart, and she's sort of stretching the fabric, not just of her voice, but of the whole kind of pop form, I think. There are lots of layers to that song, but what she's doing with her voice is just going, wow, wow, wow. It's very hypnotic. It's a bit like a siren, and then, you know, it whoops up to a very high register. It's like a child. It's like a kind of just reveling in what her voice can do.
Her following albums, Lionheart and Never Forever, also garnered praise. But Kate Bush's most experimental and left-of-center work was her fourth album, The Dreaming, released in 1982. It was her first time in the producer's seat, and she dove headfirst into the well of vocal loops, brass sections, and walls of noisy and gritty sound textures that included helicopter blades, didgeridoos, and even a sheep choir. Although The Dreaming did not do as well on the charts as her previous efforts, it's actually my favorite album of hers, and I believe she needed to push those boundaries and see how far she could go into the depths of experimentation in order to create Hounds of Love, which is her most critically acclaimed album to date. With the single Running Up That Hill, Bush achieved her first hit in the US. Continuing her streak of literary references in her songwriting, the song Cloud Busting was based on a book of dreams by Peter Reich, which Reich wrote about his father, Wilhelm Reich, the psychoanalyst who invented the cloudbuster, a device that could trigger a rainfall. Another excellent album of hers is her 1992 release, The Red Shoes, which branches into incredibly moody and solemn cuts like And So Is Love, which features the hypnotic guitar playing of Eric Clapton.
It must be love.
The song Lily was inspired by her friend Lily Cornford, a spiritual healer who acts as a celestial guide to Bush as she chants a prayer to the universe.
She said, "Child, take what I say with a pinch of salt and protect yourself with fire."
Kate Bush's songwriting is largely inspired by an array of Western literature. She has often written from the perspectives of characters, some that she has conjured up herself and others based on the books she has read. Babushka is written from the perspective of a woman who uses a fake identity, a nom de plume, to tempt her husband into having an affair in order to test his loyalty. Bush wrote very politically charged songs as well. Army Dreamers is written from the perspective of a mother of a dead soldier. The song Breathing off of the album Never Forever is written from the perspective of a reincarnated fetus who was terrified of being born because of the radioactive chemicals in the air eventually killing everybody by cutting off the population's access to oxygen, hindering the ability to breathe. And the title track on The Sensual World was inspired by Molly Bloom's soliloquy in James Joyce's Ulysses.
Yes, he said, I was a flower of the mountain, yes. So we're all flowers, a woman's body, yes.
He said I was a flower of the mountain, yes, but now I've powers over a woman's body.
What makes the music of Kate Bush so distinct is that it is unmistakably and uniquely hers. When a Kate Bush record comes on, there's no mistaking that it's Kate Bush and nobody else. And she has never been the type of artist to wear her influences directly on her sleeve. According to Bush herself, she was inspired by the theatrical ambivalence of Peter Gabriel and David Bowie, as well as Roxy Music. Another part of Peter Gabriel's work that she was heavily influenced by once she had started producing her own work was Gabriel's use of the Fairlight, which was the first digital sampling synthesizer. Other important influences on her were Lindsay Kemp and Adam Darius, who were both mime artists and choreographers. Bush had first discovered Lindsay Kemp when she saw his pantomime show Flowers, which was based on the Jean Genet novel Our Lady of the Flowers. Kemp would go on to influence Bush's performance style throughout her career.
I went to see a show, and it was Lindsay Kemp. And really, I'd never seen anything like it before. And what he was doing was he was using movement without any sound at all, something I'd never experienced. And he was expressing so much, probably more than most people would express with their mouths. And it suddenly dawned on me that there was a whole new world of expression that I hadn't even realized.
She is her own beautiful, otherworldly creation. Her songwriting, performance style, and abstract experimentation has influenced artists like Tori Amos, Bjork, FKA Twigs, Bat for Lashes, Joanna Newsom, Mitski, Perfume Genius, and several others. Bush has often been labeled as an enigma, and many people have called her aloof or elusive. She has never been very public about her life outside of recording music, and she only steps back into the media light when she has work to promote. She doesn't perform live very much either. because it allows her to live her life free from the hypervisibility that so many pop stars are subjected to. What she normally does is come out with a record, then she disappears to work away on the next one, however long that takes. To get into the creative process, I need to have a quiet place that I work from. If I was living my life in the industry as this big pop star, that's too distracting. It's too much to do with other people's perceptions of who you are, and what's important to me is to be a human being with a soul and a sense of who they are, not who everybody else thinks they are. Her art is sacred to her, and she is not willing to share it with the public until it is in the best shape it could possibly be in. Every time she blesses the world with a new record, it is a magical occasion, and she doesn't even need to be visible or make her presence known in order for listeners to know that she's with us. And not many artists have that magic. We should all be blessed to be sharing the world with somebody as special as Kate Bush.